Okay, so I'm going to, I'll start with saying, what are the 10 warning signals that you're, when do you know you should be concerned? And we'll catch up hopefully with this. So, anyone want to give me, when should you be concerned about an ICO, the ICO that you've done? Probably when you got the subpoena from the SEC, right? Here we go. Okay, second, when you get a letter of inquiry from the SEC. So you may not get a subpoena, but you get a letter of inquiry asking you a whole bunch of questions. And those questions that they ask can be almost as complete as a subpoena. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort. Another way you should be concerned is if you hired a company to do the ICO for you, to help you. And we know a number of those names and a number of names we may not know. But did your company get a subpoena? Not necessarily for yours, but for some other one that they were involved with. Now, the place that really gets me concerned is where your investors or advisors may have gotten subpoenas, because guess what? What they're doing is they're looking across. So you may not be on the radar screen, but if your advisor lists, when the advisor responds to the question of what companies are you advising, and your name appears on that list, your company's name, you've got an issue. Okay, so this one is actually happening now. People are getting knocks on the door. Those knocks are coming from investigators, generally federal FBI, let's just leave it at that. But law enforcement, people with a badge are showing up at people's doors and asking questions now. It's getting that serious. Obviously, if you're reading the papers, the newspapers, or any social media, it's hard to miss the kinds of stories. What about Facebook? Facebook stopped taking advertisements for ICOs. We've seen, and then this week I think it was announced that Bing finally, it's very strange. So Facebook stopped it a while ago, Bing cut it off, and Google stopped it, and Bing this week. Well, I had someone say to me, when the Facebook shut down ICOs, he said, well, it's just an admission by the SEC. They can't do anything in this area. So they've got to go through, they've got to go to Facebook and tell them to take it down. I said, no, I think it's a slightly different spin on it. Probably the SEC went to Facebook and said, if you don't take this down, we are going to prosecute you as an aider and abetter in securities fraud for taking money from people to put up advertisements, not doing due diligence on those companies and understanding what is going on. And then finally, if David Silverts has served you or some other plaintiff's attorney, you know you're in a little bit of hot water. So, what are some of the warning signs of that remediation is necessary? So what do I mean by remediation? You've done your ICO. Maybe you haven't gotten that subpoena yet. Maybe you have gotten that subpoena. Are there things that you should be doing to address things that should have been addressed the first time around? So, the first one is, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard this, oh, I'm okay. My token was a utility token. Anyone, hopefully, that has said that by now, knows better that even if it is a utility token, the SEC is more likely than not to consider it to be a security. Now, I'm not right now passing judgment on whether that's the right conclusion or not, but that's what they're doing. So that's number one. Two, if you registered your security, or your token on an exchange, maybe even a decentralized exchange, which doesn't take more than about 10, or I would say 10 minutes, but I think it's more like about a minute and a half. You've got some issues you need to address related to whether, if it's a security, then you've taken an active step to register or to put an unregistered security on an exchange. Okay, so, and these are things that have come up in my daily life. And I've heard all of these even within the last 3 or 4 weeks. But, question is, did you have a lawyer? You can't believe how many people have done ICOs and are still going out to the market without necessarily hiring a lawyer. The second mistake is, and I say this is a mistake, is that the lawyer that's hired has, and I started originally with 3 years in there, but I upped it to 5 because I realized we're 5 years into full swing Bitcoin world. It's really almost 10 now, but we've got, you know, the competency in the space is still incredibly low. Okay, I guess I'll say that from the standpoint that I've been doing digital currencies for 10 years now. And I remember when I showed up at my first Bitcoin conference in San Jose in 2013, and I listened to a panel of lawyers talk about AML compliance in particular, but on other issues as well. And they had none of the backing of the prior 5 years of experience. And there's a lot of history out there in the world of digital currencies. We had a case back in 2008 that was fully prosecuted by the US government and the subject of a plea agreement that laid out a path for regulation in the space, and especially in the AML space. And even today, that case is not studied enough for the implications in this arena, even after we've had the DOJ prosecute Ripple and others. Yes, sir. Oh, about the case is eGold, E-G-O-L-D. It's a gold-backed digital currency system, and in full disclosure, I was hired after they were prosecuted to help clean up based on the terms of the plea agreement. Okay. So age, just as a practical matter, someone that has less than 3 years of experience and probably less than 5 years of experience and is not in a large firm with lots of resources to draw upon and experienced lawyers around them is not in a position to provide the kind of advice that's needed in what has become a very serious, an area with some very serious implications. Another is that, you know, the lawyer with the zoning experience gets hired. I was trying to find something that was far enough out there, but I've seen, you know, even the deference to a wonderful presentation by the IP lawyer is that an IP lawyer standing alone doesn't have the full set of skills to handle what is coming up in the ICO, SEO arena. Personally, with the background I have, I don't do this work without having a team around me. I have a full-fledged securities lawyer on one elbow, I have a tax lawyer on the other elbow, and then I'll have whatever else I need given the nature of the type of offering. Now, what a lot of places don't have is somebody like me who has the background in digital currencies. And a number of the other issues, I think someone over here raised a question about the new FinTech regulation that came out. Well, the quick answer to the new FinTech regulation that came out last week, which should have been answered very quickly, is, or went final after 2.5, 3 years, is that it technically doesn't apply to anyone in the space. We can go way into that, but we don't have time to do that right now. But, okay, here's, the lawyers done 10 ICOs. Right there, that's almost the warning, other than a couple of law firms, one of which was named earlier. The number of ICOs that the law firm has done or a lawyer has done is not necessarily indicative of the fact that it's been done with the appropriate skill sets. Okay, this is probably one of my favorites, is has your lawyer called you since you've done the ICO? If you did the ICO back in October, have you heard from your law firm since then? If not, you should have serious alarm bells going off. Okay, I had to incorporate the Howey point test in here. I don't know how many of you had an opportunity to see the SEC website. I was at Bitcoin Week last week, and the response, I was on the floor of the conference when this came out, and the response I got is, hey, this is really good what they put out there. We can use it for our ICO. I would say if you had similarities, whether it's the celebrity endorsements, which I think that was actually quite cool in the celebrities, except for maybe one of them who was pictured by the airplane. But if you, that doesn't necessarily mean stay on ICO, but there are other factors we want to look at. If you haven't sold, this is another, is that people say, well, I didn't sell to U.S. residents, so I don't have anything to be concerned about. Well, how do you know you didn't sell to U.S. residents? And especially if you relied upon the representation of the customer to say that they weren't a U.S. resident, without doing any other kind of checking. If that's how you did your ICO, or if you're thinking of doing your ICO, you need to think again, and you need help. Okay, and then if you used a vendor to do KYC checks, well, did you go back and look at that information? What is that? What are you looking for when you do the KYC checks? I hear people say all the time, oh, I've done my KYC AML checks. And I'm like, okay, so what did you do with it? And they have no concept of why they're doing a KYC AML check, other than they know they're supposed to do a KYC AML check. Okay, you haven't registered for FinTech yet. If you did an ICO based on the FinTech letter that went to Senator Wyden on February 16th, if you wrote the code, or whoever wrote the code and then accepted fiat or other things of value, which is cryptocurrencies, you need to register with FinTech as a money service business. What does that mean? That means you also need to put an AML compliance, anti-money laundering compliance program in place that is consistent with the regulations, and we'll go into that next panel. Okay, steps to remediate: review your legal team. First of all, if you don't have a lawyer, hire a lawyer. Go back and look at your engagement letter with respect to the law firm that you hired and see what they're really representing that they're going to do for you and how much protection they're going to provide in the advice that they're going to give you. And confirm the competency of the team that you're working with. Make sure that they do have the securities lawyer, the tax lawyer, that they have somebody who understands the world of digital currencies, really understands AML compliance. Preserve the record. If you've done your ICO, it's important to preserve the record. Preserve all the correspondence that you have. We're going to need that in dealing with the SEC. Probably not if, but when they come knocking. Go ahead and get the securities laws issues addressed. If you need to file Reg D filings, get them done. Get done what you need to. Identify any other issues you might have and review your KYC AML process. Make sure you get registered with FinTech. Make sure you get that AML compliance program built out. Do not take something that somebody gives you, a 10-page document, put your name on it, substitute in some little bits of pieces of information. That's not an AML compliance program that will pass muster with the regulators, and you too someday will find yourself in the crosshairs with FinTech. State money transmitter licensing, the New York DFS rule. These are things that you need to check into, because guess what? You're not necessarily excluded from those laws because you did quoting token offering. You may have a look back to do on your data, your customer data, the transactions that have gone across your system. And I would also urge you to get your team prepped. You need to get your team prepped so if that knock on the door comes, could come at 9 o'clock at night, at midnight at night, that they know how to respond, what to say. Hey, I'm going to call my lawyer, I need to call my boss. Don't let them start talking without being appropriately represented. They should know what to say in public statements. Should be careful about who's getting up on the podium and talking about issues and what kind of conversations to have with regulators. So finally, deciding whether you're going to fight, flight, or clean up. What you need to do is make sure you understand what your liabilities are, because too often people don't really fully understand what their exposure really is. And they may say, oh, I'm going to fight this token. But if they fight the token, it might open the door. If they say, oh, I really have a utility, I'm going to fight it, it might open the door on other things. So you have to make sure you're pristine in every aspect. Check your budget to make sure you've got enough money, make sure you're clear on your facts. in what you're going after, gotta understand those laws. If you don't understand those laws, it's gonna trip you up. And that's what happened with the Eagle, guys. That's what's happened again and again and again. Understanding how regulators think. I had someone in 2000, I had actually multiple people down in 2014 call me up and say, hey, I saw so-and-so do such and such last week, which was some of the earliest ICO activity. They didn't get into trouble. I can do it too. And guess what? It's catching up with them now. And be prepared to have your business disrupted. So on that, thank you for your time and attention. And please do stay around for David because he's the guy that we really need to hear in this space.
Thank you so much to Carol and Cleef.